solar coaster. Come along for the ride, yeah. The solar coaster's rolling, it feels so right. Hop on the solar coaster. Come along for the ride.
That's what this is. This is really, I wanted to talk to the best closer in the industry, and I thought of you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You are. You're like, so I want you to talk to me about kind of, I'm going to preface this opening with that you were the first SunPower non-exclusive or non-installing dealer, and when you were there, like, tell me a little bit about some of your impressive stats that you did, because it's all virtual.
Yeah, candidly, like this is so I launched my dealership in 19. That's when they launched a non-installing dealer for Arizona program. I think initially it was a question. So I've been selling for installing dealers with SunPower for years before that. Like, I started in solar back in 2008. So I probably had sold for over 10 years a residential solar through installing dealers for SunPower. And then they launched non-installing dealer. My biggest challenge was getting leads and appointments, not knowing necessarily how to go do that. So I started buying through third parties like Clean Energy and Solar Reviews, et cetera. Started getting sits. And then the first summer, I think I was running everything. I was actually calling the appointments. I was setting them. I was closing them. I was putting basically the whole workflow together. I was probably writing, probably 2 to 3 contracts a week in that summer, so I think the first summer, I think I sold, I'm going off memory here, but probably like a megawatt and a half, maybe myself. So it was a good summer, like solid business for one person for sure. That was 19. And I think did COVID happen in 20 or 20?
Yeah.
20. So in 19, it was a combination mainly of me going in person to close. And so that was more like I only had so much time opportunity to go over. In Phoenix, it takes about an hour to get to your lead, pitch the lead, go back. You're able to run maybe 2 or 3 a day. So that's why I was closing a couple a week. Transition to COVID. So there was a break there with COVID. Like there was nothing going on the first few months where nobody was writing anything. Then we had a clientele who was at the house who was willing to do a virtual. And had money. And they were bored because about 2 months into COVID, they were like, I have money and I'm willing to do something. And I think you saw a huge gravitation towards home improvement in general. Because people are like, I'm at my house, I'm noticing this is broken, that's broken, I want to fix this. So solar was kind of in that same vein. So it was kind of a perfect storm. And I had just met with SunPower at their dealer conference. I gave a talk on Showpad at the end of 2019, going into 2020, and I met their Austin team that did virtual sales, and that's all they do for SunPower. They were called Spree, and they told me, okay, here's what you need to get set up with. They, like even the equipment I'm right now, I'm on the Snow Globe microphone. I've got the 2 lights they recommended. So they basically got me set up to do virtual. This is kind of just before COVID went into like lockdown. And then, like I said, we had a couple months transition, no one doing anything for about a month and now 2 months. And then that summer, I started doing my own sits, virtual, all my sits. And SunPower started also allowing me to lead share with them and buy their leads, which up until then I hadn't really been able to do that, or sparingly. So a combination of factors. And then that summer, I started sitting 3, 4, 5 a day, sometimes up to 7 a day. And I was probably closing on average that summer into next summer, probably somewhere between 10, 12, 13, 14 contracts a week. So, numbers that I had never produced in my career. Virtual was so much more time efficient for me. I had built a really good pitch on Showpad as well. So my pitch deck went really well. My clients were some of them were looking for solar with SunPower. So there was also that kind of advantage I had. And so it turned into honestly, I was kind of like a bit of a machine where I was just in the office 6 days a week, just pitching nonstop.
I remember.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy for it went on for about 2 years. And I think my highest year that I wrote, and I had a couple reps at the time, I think was like a little over 7 megawatts in 1 year, which was fantastic. Don't get me wrong.
By yourself?
Not so much I probably wrote at least 4 of that. And then I had reps writing some as well. So it's a combination because I could only have so much time. And honestly, I was getting burned out by my third year of doing that. But I mean, honestly, it was such a good run that it allowed me to kind of think of solar in a different way, to get more efficient with like recognizing what a virtual was for myself and the client, seeing as all of our designs are done online. We can essentially, save a lot of the going back and forth. I don't need to be at their house. I can tell them what the layout looks like. So it opened my eyes to a really efficient sales model that ended up doing really well for me. I will say, though, now transitioning into where we are now, the economy is a lot tighter. Clients have gravitated more towards wanting in person, harder to get sits. Obviously, now the business is a lot more difficult. But yeah, for those few years, it was kind of a perfect storm of the best conditions I could have asked for. A lockdown, virtual clients with money and credit. So it was a good time to make hay, and I made a lot of hay, and that was good. I'm glad I did, because you know how this goes with every industry. There's ebbs and flows. I knew when I was doing that at the time that wasn't going to last. So I never planned like, oh, this is normal, I'm going to write 10 contracts a week myself. Like that didn't seem normal then, and it wasn't normal. So it was kind of, like I said, a perfect storm. And then it allowed me to kind of build my own business, my own brand. And then unfortunately that all went sideways when SunPower went out of business. So it all went full circle.
And you've always been someone who could pivot quick.
Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about, how do you know as a solar company, what are your recommendations to solar companies to like when you know that it's time to move?
Well, I mean, this year is a perfect example of, I think, a situation where you have to react to a market that's changed dramatically, right? Like you have a client now that's recessionary, pulled back on spending. Solar is a big ticket. My market, Phoenix, now requires battery because the buyback rate's too low to do anything of real value to selling solar back. So you kind of have to have a battery to bridge some of the peak hours. This year in particular, I've gone back to my old script, which was my 2008 when I started the industry, kind of my recessionary script, where I look now at going for low ticket and going into homes and working on energy efficiency as a start. So I go into homes now and assess attics. I'm looking at duct leakage, insulation depth, getting a relationship with the client, starting with a lower ticket, a better finance option, and then building that relationship, and then looking at solar as another option once I have that relationship.
The duct leakage, attic
insulation. So the two, if you look at efficiency, which is where I came from before I did solar, the two biggest fixes in most homes, 9 out of 10 attics are under insulated by more than 50%. And the insulation on the insulation side, and then on the duct side, the average duct system in America leaks about 20+% of its air. So those are the two fixes that I could almost go into most homes, unless it's a new home. I can go into most homes. If it's got age on that home, 5-10 years, I can go in and assess that there's going to be likely duct leakage and insulation that need to be addressed. So my point is, this is a market in Phoenix today where I'm now working with a new vendor, Bright Home Energy. They do efficiency and solar. So kind of reinventing myself to go back to what I think is a better playbook, which is you're not going to get big ticket solar and you get a lot of contracts right now. I don't care where you're selling. Like, yeah, you can, and they're out there, but it's a little bit harder to find those clients that have that kind of money or are willing to make that kind of investment. So most of the clients I meet now, I'm looking at a simple attic retrofit, a 10-year financing, a $40, $50 a month payment. That's something they can wrap their arms around and kind of start with. And then I still find the solar clients, like today I have a Maxion lead at 4:00. That's a big home. That's a client that's got money. So like, there's still a mix of that, but it's just, how it goes. I'm looking at how do I
$20 savings per month? Is that what you just said?
No, I'm saying the payment on like an attic fix is about $40 a month on a 10-year financing.
Got it.
Yeah. But that number is similar to a number I used to sell back in the recession that people would be like, okay, I can do that. Versus a solar payment of, I've got a $60,000 note and now I've got like a $200, $250 payment for 25 years. Like that's a much harder ask in today's economy. So my point is adapting to the economy, adapting to the market you sell in. That's a consistent evolution that I'm always challenging myself to meet. And Phoenix is like kind of a perfect example of a really hard solar market right now. Probably harder than, I would say Phoenix is probably one of the hardest solar markets in the US right now, because the utilities have been very anti-solar. They've reduced their buyback on the net side. They only give like a 5 cent credit. doesn't really do anything for the bill. So now you've got to do storage. The problem is we don't have, like, if you look at Phoenix, we don't have the utility rate structure that they have in California. There you get tiered pricing up to 30, 40, 50 cents per watt, per kilowatt hour, I'm sorry. And here we're lucky to get to 20, 25, maybe 30 cents. So it's hard to put a battery to a solar system in Phoenix and show any kind of savings if you try to finance it. So that's why Phoenix is just especially tough. If you're not willing to, I mean, there's reps out here that still misrepresent what leftover billing look like and kind of, I think, pretend that you're not going to have a bill, and they get contracts. But I'm a long-term, consultant. I have an approach where I don't lie to clients. I give them accurate information. I've been in homes where I tell them it just doesn't make sense for you. Frankly, you've got the wrong roof. You got too much shade. Or I was in a home yesterday, $3 million home, spec home. It's a new build. Client has money, but they're going to be selling this house in a couple months. And I told him, I said, look, you could put solar on the roof and I can waste your money, or I could put 2 batteries on the side of your house and run your home during peak and accomplish the same goal and grid charge the battery and not use solar. So I showed him a better way, I think, to do it, and not necessarily, and that's not involving solar. So I think I'm always adjusting to where the market is, and my consistent throughput, I think what makes me good at this, my goal is to give the client accurate information and ethical approach. I don't go in like, well, what's going to make me the biggest commission here? Which I think a lot of ECs still end up doing that. So I told the client, look, if I was a traditional solar vendor and I came out and looked at your flat roof, it's a big house, 3,000 square foot, or no, I'm sorry, 5,000 square foot. I could sell you a whole bunch of solar. And I told them that's a big margin markup for the company, and I make a bigger commission to do that. If I sell you 2 batteries, I don't make a lot of money, and I'm okay with that. But I said, I'm here to give you the better advice for what I would do in this situation. You're selling the home in a few months. You're never going to get your money back on solar, on an investment like solar, when you're selling your home that quick. So I said, throw 2 batteries on, hire a listing agent who understands rate plans so they can position this as a house that's going to be cheaper to run for similar square foot homes. Because I'm also a listing agent. So I was kind of positioning myself as, hey, maybe you want me to do a listing agent too. But the idea is I just want to make sure I'm giving good advice, and it's always very fluid. Phoenix is, because of that, Phoenix, I think, forces evolution faster because the market is so tricky here, which I don't know how Hawaii and I know California's got their own challenges, but every market's a little bit nuanced. So it just takes the amount. I think the main thing is, does the rep have the right integrity? Are they going to approach the client with that kind of ethical, like, I want to do what's right for you. I'm not leading this decision by commission.
Yeah, it's exactly the kind of way that I do. And I think that, now that, you brought up product, I know we've spent a lot of time talking about product and how important it is. And now that people are reaching parity, right? Everyone kind of has the same product. What is your approach to, are you just kind of telling them things that others won't, about the Arizona, like the rapid temperature swings of the roof, or, or do you, is it just that you're going above and beyond on the education of that and others aren't?
No, so candidly, like the issue I had last year selling for Solar Tech was we were selling REC Alpha, which everybody and their brother has in this market. And so what I found we were doing last year, which was very frustrating to me, is we were table setting a lot of deals for other reps. So we would come in and I have a long slide deck on Alpha. I met with REC and I walked through a deck. I built a deck for myself and had them review it. But the problem is when you sell the same tech, what can you do? Because the reality is you could go into that tech and tell them, this is why I think this panel is great, and here's all the reasons why you should have this on your roof. And at the end of the sit, you have a client who's like, okay, I like what you said about this. I'm convinced this is a great product. What are they going to want to do, Anna? I want to go shop you.
Right.
So I don't find that to be very effective. So what I went back to is kind of like going back to the future. I went back to my relationship with Maxeon because nobody had the IBC. And I'm like, look, I was so spoiled. I know that tech better than anybody outside of Maxeon people, maybe. I built an entire deck at the end of last year. I pivoted it back to Maxeon, and I've had no problems closing at this point, because now I'm coming in and saying, look, everyone else is selling you conventional, and I'll explain TopCon, I'll explain what the techs are, I'll explain the deficiencies and temperature, all that. But then I go through IBC, the interdigitated backside contact. Once I go through that and a 40-year warranty and what the tech is, I mean, I'm not losing very many deals. The only time I lose a deal now is because IBC, like we only have the 350s in supply right now because Maxion's
Yeah.
got supply chain issues. So like I just lost the deal 2 weeks ago because the guy was selling a 400 plus watt Q cell, and I'm selling a 350 Maxion, which is a better product. But in the end, the client could not get past the 350 number. And trust me, I tried 50 ways to Sunday on why this is a better frame, smaller frame, fit our roof better. In the end, it was a battle I lost. I'm okay with that. My feeling is if I do my job well and I know I hit every talking point, I have a great deck, I know I've done what I need to do, I won't get all of them. Like, so I get frustrated when I lose, but I don't lose a lot. Like even now, I'm not writing a lot, but I would say probably like if you looked at my last 15 sits, I've probably signed 10 or 11 of them. So, again, not a lot of sits right now in Phoenix. I'm trying to solve some of that issue as well. I'm in the process of recreating some advertising, looking at ways to get in for some of the lower hanging fruit. But outside of that, I think my approach is, when you ask that question, I am definitely going to try and sell the best tech, and I want something different. Like, because I can't do any more than explain the same product someone else is selling you better. That doesn't win me the deal necessarily, because most clients are shoppers right now. They're recessionary and they want to get 5 quotes. They're like, I want to get my best deal. Well, if I'm selling the alpha, again, the client's natural inclination is, let me go find some alpha people, or I'll call the guy that came to me and bid me Q-Cell and ask him, can you get alpha? Because I like alpha. So then you end up with 3 quotes and everyone pulls their pants down, and whoever wins that deal, it's a marginal sale at best. Nobody made money, and that's Phoenix in a nutshell. So
you've also sold in other places, so you're starting to kind of grow externally. Tell me about, like, how do you decide what market is the market to, how do you pick these other markets for expansion?
So right now I have a relationship in Florida with a company called PGT Energy Maxion. So here's how I'm developing relationships. Las Vegas, I'm working through an air conditioning company to sell solar through their reps. I'm always looking for, so the market itself, I would love a net metered market. Florida's net metered. That's great. That's a 1-for-1 trade on power. That's fantastic. But ultimately, and then Vegas has a very quick, from signing to install, it's one of the quickest timelines to get to an install. So it's very transactional, super quick market. They're a 75% utility buyback. So what I'm looking for in the market side, I'm looking for a robust utility buyback where I don't need a battery. I'm looking for utilities that have no time of use, so I don't need a battery. So I'm trying to keep batteries out because they're so damn expensive. So I want a market where I can go solar only, has a reasonable permit to install, cadence on the calendar. And then I'm looking for the primary driver I'm looking for is relationships where they can provide me leads. So like PrimeBid, Maxion came to me a few weeks ago because I've been talking about my deck and I'm showing them some success in Phoenix. And I reached out to them and said, do you have any vendors across the US, especially net meter markets, that might need help selling product? Because that's what I do. And they put me in touch with PrimeBid. Today I met with them again. They're going to reset me on giving leads to me. So that's a relationship where if I can feed them business and get product knowledge and show a close rate they like, they'll feed me. Las Vegas, I met an air conditioning company again through Maxion. I'm leveraging that relationship. And they brought me to an air conditioning company that I closed a relationship with last week, where their AC techs are going to go into the house. They're going to go in for service or AC replacement, not solar. They're going to identify in that opportunity, is there room on the roof? How does the service panel look? If those things check off, they're going to, in that same service call, talk to the client and say, hey, I'm here for air conditioning. That's my focus today, but you have a good roof for this. You've got a good positioning on the house. This is something solar might make sense for you. Are you open to having a consultation? If the client says yes, they're going to send that back to me. I'm going to do a virtual sit just on product. I'm not going to present numbers. And then that tech is in that same appointment going to book themselves to come in after I present product on another appointment separate for solar and come in and close the business. They'll present numbers, the layout, everything. But that's unusual, like a 3-touch client situation. Yeah. But I'm trying to find ways to get to a client that isn't necessarily a solar client today, but it's definitely a solar opportunity that we couldn't get. Because candidly, as you and I both know, trying to buy these through leads, it's just shit. I don't care who you buy it through. It's
Shit.
complete garbage.
You've tried to build sales teams in the past. What would you say are the lessons learned there on building a team?
I think the biggest thing I've always found, and true when I just interviewed this air conditioning company, so kind of a classic scenario here where I went, they had hired a solar only rep at this air conditioning company in Las Vegas, and I didn't get a great read on him. And then that owner told me every rep that he interviewed for solar that was solar experienced was just like the worst kind of person he never wanted to work with. And so I ended up going back to that company a second time. I flew out last week. And that's where the idea came with, well, why don't we work through the AC techs you already trust to get in the home and then bring me in and have them back end and sell. But so I guess my point in saying that is, I think when you're hiring an energy consultant, it might be smart to maybe look outside of solar at this point, because candidly, so many of the ECs that I meet that are experienced are just super transactional and commission driven. They're not ethical, frankly. The solar bro, if you will. And that's kind of what all these markets, Phoenix, Vegas, they're all kind of turning into that whole, like, I'm a leveraged solar salesman and I'm going to sell you solar versus I'm going to educate. I want to work with you and have you, get you to the right decision. I almost feel like we should, if we're going to recruit, we should go outside of this industry at this point, because there's just too many bad eggs in solar. So what I've learned is get creative on what kind of person you're looking for, but find an ethical person that's trainable. If you get me somebody who's ethical and trainable, I can work with that person. I don't care if they don't even know solar, because I can teach them solar. But having the bad solar sales habits, which I think a lot of reps do, they're just recycled garbage that go from one company to another. So those are not people that are going to attract me, and they would repel me at the home if I was a consumer. So that's kind of lead with your gut. Trust your gut when you meet a rep. But I almost feel like, go outside the industry at this point to find better.
And what are your thoughts on, I know that you're one of those, like, you're not your average bear, you would set all these different things. Like, I did the same thing when I was selling solar. But what are your thoughts on the role of the setter versus us? Do you have an experience when people are setting the appointments and then you're calling to confirm or show up? Because what we found a lot is that, for those people who are not responsible, like, they're not the owner of the business, right? Yeah. They get a lead, they might get an appointment, and then they're calling and they're pre-qualifying that homeowner before they even go there.
Yeah.
Right. So now people are like, well, should we even let them talk to the homeowner, or just they need to show up? Or what has your experience been with, like, best practice on separation?
Yeah. I mean, the hard part is, like, you could go either way, right? Like, you could go to I know a lot of sales reps won't want to touch the lead because they're afraid if they call, they're going to cancel. So if it's set by someone else, a call center, what have you, they're just going to go to that lead. I'm still a fan of the rep being involved, because to me, this is all a business on relationship. So, like, when we book an appointment, let's say it is booked through an outside vendor, I still have my rep call. Because the reality is, if they're going to cancel, they're already loose anyway. Like, what's the point of me showing up? We're not going to, try to stick my foot in the door and walk in and try to pitch you. So I feel like the rep should take responsibility in that process and not rely just on the setter. I think it's better to bookend the setter. If the setter sets them, let's say I get an appointment today that's set for an outside call center for tomorrow at 4. I'm going to have myself or my rep who's running that lead call that client right then and say, hey, I just want a warm introduction. I'm the one who's going to come out and meet with you. I want to give you a sense of who I am. I'm going to tell you on the phone, I'm not a traditional solar rep. I'm not a sales rep in that sense. I'm not going to come out and push you into anything, just so you know. I'm here to educate, and I'll give him my resume. I've been in the industry for 17 years. I've helped probably north of 5,000 clients go solar. I kind of take the whole initial resistance that they have, take it down even more. And then it's a warm entry for me. Now, if I'm going to call them and say, oh, forget it, I want to cancel, that's my opportunity to have a relationship with them as well. I'm not afraid of that phone call. Like, to me, that's where I either have the relationship and I go into that home with that, or I'm going to be lost and it's not going to go anywhere anyway. So here's my advice for any rep. Don't work within the framework of fear. Like, if you're afraid you're going to get a cancellation if you call them, well, you're manifesting a cancellation in my mind. Like, I'm always of the thought, like, this client wants to hear from me and I'm different. So I'm going to position myself as different. I'm going to call you immediately. I don't shy away from that at all. Like I'm very much like, let's get into that experience and let me find out. Because I would rather have you, if you were the homeowner, tell me, Greg, I don't really want to do this. The call center was pushy. Okay, that's good information for me, number one. Number two, I totally get it. And then I'm empathizing and I'm going to see if I can still salvage it. Like, I think those are things that as an owner or an EC, I would want to do. I always feel like own the process and do not let fear dictate that process.
I like that a lot. And what if it's an internal setting team? Have you worked with people who are internal setters? Do you think the setter should confirm the appointments and save their relationship with that homeowner?
I'm a fan of that sales rep getting the relationship as soon as possible. Yeah. So if the setter said it, internal or outside, didn't matter to me. Like the rep's calling, like you're still, even with SunPower, like they would always send me booked leads. I always reached out to them. I'd be like, hey, I just want to confirm. And many times we'd call them and they're like, you know how SunPower was, they're booked 2 weeks out. And I'm like, I would call them like, just out of curiosity. And then they would tell me, well, SunPower told me that's the next avail. I'm like, well, that's not exactly true.
I know. So, that was ridiculous.
Yeah. So, but that was always to me an opportunity. I didn't complain about it. I'm like, look, SunPower got me the opportunity. That their job's done. Like now it's my job. So I always, again, another thing I'm really big on with whether it's lead setting or appointments or what have you, ownership. Like your best energy consultants own their own process. Like they don't like stand back and say, well, the setter did this or SunPower did this, or that kind of stuff drives me bananas. Like, I'm like, I don't care what they did. When it went to you, it's yours and take it over. Like I had reps that would sit, they would not call the lead. They'd go to the house and they'd be like, well, because I thought they'd cancel. I'm like, well, now they've no-showed you because you didn't even go out of your ass to call them. Like, to me, it's like own your process. And I find most DCs don't. I think most people in life don't want to own their process. So
I agree.
Your best salespeople are like, I own my shit. Like from day one, like that's my client. That's my opportunity. I see an opportunity come in. I'm calling you immediately.
It's like me, like, well, even when afterward, like I was a dog with a bone. Like I would send them forever, every Friday, a cartoon, every single one. And I have so many people that you're the only one who still contacts me. It could be like a year later. I'm like, I'm gonna get solar from someone, and it's gonna be me. Like, you know, I've had
people on like 2-year cadences where I'm following up. And they're like, you're the only one that stuck with me. And sometimes it ends up in a deal. Sometimes it doesn't. But my point is, you still want to own that information, own that appointment, own that client. The more you own it, the more the client feels that, the more they're going to feel like they're in a process with you. They trust you. It builds rapport. Like, that's why I'm a fan of the rep getting involved immediately. As soon as that appointment comes across, I don't care who said it. That's immaterial. Now it's yours. You take it over. You call them, put them on your cadence, put them on your expectation list. Like, make sure you're creating the environment you want. And if they're not there in the headspace, better to find out right then. I mean, well, how does it help you?
It's appropriate to call. So, like, after you meet with someone,
yeah.
How many times do you follow up before you decide not to, or do you do it forever?
I mean, I generally do it until you tell me no. I mean, sometimes it'll be like you're just ghosting me for, months, and I'll still follow up. Now, obviously, that depends on my cadence. Like if I have a lot of leads coming in, that gets a little tedious. Then I'll go to automations like on Go High Level, just kind of work with that. But I still like the personal touch of me calling from my cell phone. Like there's something about me as the owner in that case calling you and checking in. I just feel like that gives me a little bit more credibility and a little more traction with the client. I don't have a hard and fast rule. I generally try to get them to convert, and I don't give up until I know they're dead or they're not interested. I always tell the client, as one of my sales mentors said, the second best answer you can give me is no. I'd rather have a no than you just keep me in your, I'm following up for years. If you're not there, you're not there. I get it. I respect people. Like, tell me where you're at. I'm very much like, if you tell me where you're at and I'll tell you where I'm at, like, either there's something that's going to move forward or there isn't. Like, but I don't get discouraged by them not responding right away or responding weeks later. Like, people are people. I feel like, and the other thing is, I don't know if they're going to respond to an email, a text, a phone call. I have no idea what kind of client I'm dealing with. So it's about learning the client too. And some of like their communication preferences, that's all organic and different for everybody.
Cool. This has been exciting. Is there any questions, anything that I'm asking, not answering here that I should be asking you? Any juicy solar things that you think?
No, I think the key is just like, I think it's our industry in a nutshell is like just an industry of survivors. Like The best people that have been in this for 10 plus 15, I'm almost 17 years in, we're survivors. Like for me personally, I'll pivot. I have a real estate license. I'll pivot to that next year if solar goes sideways. Like I think in life, I've learned the older I've gotten, everything's always in flux. And your book is titled The Solar Coaster. I mean, I've been on this for 17 years. Like I've adjusted to so many new normals because the markets are always changing. I've sold in different markets, as you said. I think the thing that I've learned is be resilient, be adaptive, and again, don't be in the space of fear. Like if I had seen this tax credit news that I got, 2 days ago from the House when I was 5 years in, I would have been freaking the F out. And that was me back in Solar Concepts, back when I was selling my infancy of solar. I was freaking out about everything. Like the state's going to do this, the utility's going to defund. And they did. They defunded the utility rebate. I would freak out with every gyration. Now that I've been doing it for so long and just I feel so much more settled in who I am, I don't freak out. Like I'm more of like, whatever it is, I will adapt. And so I'm not losing sleep over it. I'm in this industry for environmental reasons. That's why I do this. Yes, it's a good living, but I do this because it's a passion of mine. I think we should be doing it for the environment. So in the end, do I think Washington has it wrong that we don't need a strong residential renewable portfolio? Yeah, they've got that completely wrong. If you look at where we're going in the future for electrification and the needs, there's not enough power being distributed and developed by utility. You're going to have a component like resi. So do I think if they kill the incentive this year that it's going to come back? Yes. I don't know how long that takes. Next cycle, Democrats, whatever. But at the end of the day, the reality is we're moving into a new world with climate change, whether people want to believe it or not. The utility grid and strain is going to get greater. Electrification is going to drive more need. We got to get power from somewhere. Sun never, shuts off. So I just think in the end, like Washington is a complete mess, right? No matter what party controls it, they're always got their heads up their ass. But for me as an individual in this industry, for the reasons I'm mentioning, I've learned I'll just adapt. And I think the solar industry will survive. It'll be significantly weakened if the ITC goes away completely. But, again, the longest players like myself will adapt. We'll figure out, how to work with the markets as they are. And we'll figure it out. I just think the sad thing to me is like, if you look at how weak these solar companies already are, like the smaller mom and pops, they're already struggling to put business through the door now with a 30% subsidy. This kind of kneecaps a lot of businesses, which I don't know why we're going to kill a lot of industry when we're already struggling and the economy's already tightening anyway. But I actually, just between you and I, had one of the swing reps from Pennsylvania. He's a Republican on the House of Representatives. I sent him and a couple of the reps emails. I actually had an exchange with him yesterday on why this is so foolish. And he doesn't know anything about solar, is what I've learned. So I educated him and said, he's like, is this a real or perceived credit, this loss of the credit? I'm like, it's real. It's hard dollars. I walked him through all of it. But my point is, these are the people making decisions. They have no idea what this means. So I think at the end of the day, I can't expect leadership from people like that. So we'll see how this all falls together or what happens at the end, but the survivors will survive and we'll figure out the next generation and how we move through that. I just don't think I would say the main thing is don't lose faith. Like we'll survive all of this, including the idiots right now in Washington, and we'll figure out a way to go forward. And in the end, solar will never die. No, in my opinion. It could get significantly hurt next year, but it won't go away completely. And at some point, it'll be reborn because we're going to go that direction anyway for so many other reasons and the needs on the utility side.
I mean, remember, this was not the first time. Exactly, we've been through this. It was gonna sunset, and there was a big push, and then they extended it. And so this is not the first time, and this is more urgency, and hopefully this is exactly what we needed to get some more urgency to help these mom and pops this year.
I hope so. I think that the challenge is if you look at the credit, I mean, again, getting the nuance here, but you look at the tax credit language, it says placed in service. That means fully installed. That doesn't help the average installer because they'll fill up their queue by, let's call it September, October, they'll be full with their install crews they have. So it's a nice little bump in the arm to the end of the year. I'm still looking at next year. We need more than lease. Like we need some kind of residential credit. So I'm hoping that we have good lobbyists. I'm hoping so. Hoping they get in there, and because the sausage is being made, we need the right people in the right ears right now. And I don't know if that's Sia or who, but I'm doing my part to talk to reps. I mean, I would even fly out to Washington, meet with them, but I don't know how interested they are in like how this bill gets cut, because they're cutting so many programs for so many things. We're just one of many things on the chopping block. So I don't know how discriminant or how much they really care right now, honestly. That's my frustration, but I'm going to do my part, and hopefully we'll come out on the other side with something.
Hop on the solar coaster, come along for the ride, yeah. The solar coaster's rolling, it feels so right. Hop on the solar coaster, come along for